Welcome to the Maltese households, actually.
Thank you.
We will be passing on the message of homeopathy and the message of the Homeopathic Research Institute, of which you are the chief executive. Can you tell us about HRI, its mission, and what it is accomplishing in the homeopathic field and in the scientific field?
Well, HRI is a charity based in the UK that was set up about 8 years ago, and what we wanted to do was bring together high caliber scientists to do really rigorous research into homeopathy, because we're a group of scientists who are very passionate about the topic, but we were aware that some of the studies that were being done were not perhaps done at the highest level. So we've been operating for 8 years now, and it's an absolute pleasure to be stimulating the field of scientific research in homeopathy. So we promote new studies. We're funding studies into homeopathy for ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in children, for adults with moderate depression, these kind of clinical conditions where perhaps conventional medicine doesn't offer an entire solution, or it doesn't work for absolutely everybody. So we're looking at homeopathy and whether it can work for these patients that still need help. The other areas we're really interested in is such topics as finding out how homeopathy works, because we're aware that there's a lot of controversy around homeopathy. And most of that controversy is about the fact that people don't understand how it works. So it's completely natural to be skeptical or unsure about it and say, well, you know, I've heard you use very diluted medicines, so what's this all about? So we're conducting physics and chemistry experiments that are looking at homeopathic medicines and trying to work out exactly how they work.
What is your field?
My
Where
area.
do you come from? What is your
So
area?
originally, when I
Yes.
was in my late teens and 20s, my first degree was in biological sciences, specialising in physiology. So I was absolutely passionate about science in the beginning, and then various things happened to me in my life where I started to see the limitations of conventional medicine, which was a bit of a shock to me as a youngster. I really, felt like medicine had all the answers, and then I found out it didn't. And I just started reading around complementary healthcare, and I became intrigued. And before I knew it, I cancelled a PhD I was supposed to be doing in neuroscience, and I went to study homeopathy. At first, just out of interest, academic interest. I never thought I'd be a homeopath. And then the more I studied and the more I learnt about it, like a lot of people here at the conference in Malta, I got hooked, because I went from being a skeptic. I used to say it's impossible, it can't help anybody, it should be banned. I even said that when I was 21. And I started to meet people who'd been treated with homeopathy and done well. Then I met doctors who were using it in hospitals with their patients and were telling me it works for my patients. That's the only reason I do it. It works. Then I started becoming a practitioner myself, and I started seeing it work with my patients in my practice. And once that happens, there's no going back. My own particular interest is in how the existing evidence we have for homeopathy is dealt with in the world of science. So it's been quite interesting and actually quite distressing at times to see that there's this culture at the moment with a very sort of anti-homeopathy pressure going on, particularly in the media. So the information that gets to the media most of the time is completely incorrect, but most people wouldn't know that because it's not their field. It happens to be my world now for 20 years. So I know what evidence we have. I know that we have some very good quality studies that show homeopathy works for certain medical conditions, like hay fever, and diarrhea in children, just to name a couple of these things. So when I see it reported on the TV, there's no evidence for homeopathy, homeopathy is placebo, all this kind of thing, and I know it's not true, that's really, quite distressing for me. So the most recent example of that, which has become quite high profile, is a study done in Australia by the National Health and Medical Research Council, NHMRC, and they are world leaders at reviewing evidence. So they have quite a reputation. And they published a report in March 2015 that said there's no evidence. It was the same kind of thing. And I was so shocked because I know that isn't true. So we looked at this report, all 600 pages of it, and it was my job to sort of unpick this report and figure out what had happened. How could they possibly say there's no reliable evidence homeopathy works? And sadly, what we found is that the way they handled the data is totally unscientific, and to put it in its simplest terms, they invented a rule for this study that they would dismiss all trials that had less than 150 people in them and had a less than perfect quality score, a 5 out of 5 on this scale of how you judge quality. Now, if you treated the evidence base on conventional medicine in that way, it would fail. You wouldn't, you would not find good results. So the sad thing about this Australian report is that they treated the evidence on homeopathy differently from how they normally treat evidence, and suddenly they got no positive results. So that's the kind of injustice I find really hard. I want the evidence on homeopathy to be treated exactly the same as you would treat the evidence on conventional medicine. We want a level playing field. And when we've approached the Australians about this report, they have said on camera, we did our normal procedures. We treated homeopathy the same as everything else, and that is categorically untrue. So my job at the moment is to explain to people what's happened with this report, to explain why it can't be trusted, sadly, and to try and get the message out there that this report actually needs to be retracted. It is that's seriously inaccurate. So it's about trying to get correct information about the science to the public.
That's very good. You must be a woman full of courage. What encourages you to march on, to
it is
address
a tough field.
Injustices,
Yes.
Such injustices? What encourages you? What empowers you?
I would say that it's my personal experience with homeopathy that's kept me in this work, because it is a very difficult job to be in. You attract a lot of criticism, it's very stressful, and I'm doing a lot of this work on my own much of the time, and it's quite complex work. And whenever I have a bad day and you think, why am I doing this? Or I read some rude thing about me on the internet that's totally untrue, I sit back and I remember my patients. And you have those moments. I will remember specific patients and how they said to me, you changed my life. Nobody had been able to help me, and you fixed me. And when you remember that, I imagine, what if the people who are attacking homeopathy win? What if they really did and it disappeared? And I could not even imagine that. Even at a personal level, I just use it whenever I have a problem. Of course I use conventional medicine when I need to use that. But day in, day out, my first port of call is homeopathy. So I can't imagine being without it. So if I get tired or I have a hard day, I just think, how much do you want homeopathy to be there? And I really want it to be there. For me, for my family, for my loved ones, for my patients, and for all those people out there who haven't tried it yet. I just want to say to them, go try it and then make up your mind,
That's very good. What is your message to the Maltese public?
The Maltese public, I would say, first of all, you're incredibly lucky to be from Malta and live in Malta. I've totally fallen in love with it. It's a stunning island. And I would say, if you do have a medical problem and you think, maybe I'd like to try homeopathy, find a good local practitioner and just try it. And a good homeopath will always tell you when they can't help you. If it's something that said, no, you should go straight to your doctor, that's appropriate. So it's just something you can incorporate into your life.
And how would you attract more scientists to explore the phenomena of homeopathy through research?
That's such a good question, because it really is the future. The scientists who are here at this conference, we have professors from universities all over Europe, and they're very established. So they're able to continue researching homeopathy because they have a sort of prestige, they're already respected, and they can choose to continue working in a controversial field. But that's not the case for young scientists coming up. We have this culture at the moment that's so anti-homeopathy that you can't even say you're interested. So I would say to any scientists hearing this, just take a step back for a moment. And if you already made up your mind on homeopathy, you think it doesn't work or you think it's a placebo effect, I would say just take a step back for a second, which is what I did at 22, and think, what if it did work? What if we're not all wrong? All these doctors who use it, all these patients, what if there's something really there? And take a look at the evidence, take a look at the journal articles, take a look at the Homeopathy Research Institute website, because I provided a lot of information there, and then try it. Then make up your mind. Do not base your decision on the media. And no offense to the media during an interview, but that's not how any scientist should make up their mind on such an important topic.
Very good. Could you tell us a bit about the film, Just One Drop?
Yeah, it's a really exciting thing to be able to show as part of our whole weekend here. The documentary Just One Drop has taken years to make. It's something like 4 years. Laurel Chaitin is the director, and I first met her in 2011 when she first interviewed me, and I remember her saying, just to warn you, Rachel, and to be fair, I'm very sceptical about homeopathy. In fact, I'm pretty much anti but I think it's interesting, the whole story of it and the whole drama around it and the controversy. And I remember saying to her, you're the perfect person to make this film, because I don't want somebody who's pro-homeopathy to make this film. It needs that sort of objective angle to it. So we now have the finished film. It was only finished about 6 months ago, I believe, and it's been premiered in London in April, and this is one of the early showings of it, and it is a fantastic film. And what I love about it is she's shown both sides. You know, she has interviewed people whose entire agenda is to stop homeopathy being possible, as well as homeopaths, and she's travelled all over the world, and she's met some, you know, fantastic practitioners, some patients who use it, and she's tried to present all the angles of the story. So yeah, it's quite a highlight of the weekend here.
So you would invite the Maltese public to watch the movie when it is eventually
Absolutely. At the moment it's being
featured.
screened like this in sort of at special events.
Yes.
And that's partly because it's going to be premiered in July in Australia, because a big part of the well, one of the threads that goes through the film is about this Australian report, actually, because it's been such news in the homeopathic world. So there is a premiere in Australia in July, and once that's happened, then it's going to sort of spread around the world. So it will be coming somewhere sometime soon, and then, yeah, a great way to kind of get the whole story in an hour.
Very good. Thank you so much, Rachel. I thank you on behalf of the Malta Association of Homeopathy, and then on behalf of the scientific and homeopathic community, and on behalf of all the sick, on all the patients, for your unstinting work, courage, and high level, actually.
Thank you so much.
Of fostering research.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So I did my PhD was in Germany on the structures of water, and then as I was interested in the field of homeopathy, I moved to London to study homeopathy and also do my postdoc in a field called systems biology, which is the integration of physics, mathematics and biology. So I did a lot of projects at the boundaries between biology, physics and mathematics. So that's what I was doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how did you embark on homeopathy?
So homeopathy was a big question for me, because when I got sick when I was about 20 something, and I tried homeopathy just to see if it could do anything, and to my surprise it did something, and I just couldn't understand how that was possible. I was not expecting anything from it, and then I got a result. So I was like, this is weird. So I was really curious as a physicist how that could be, and so I researched it further. So I had just come out of Cambridge doing my master's in mathematics and physics, and so I was really interested in the foundations of physics, and so that really captivated me as a question: how can homeopathy be possible? So I read about it, and then finally did my PhD on water structures, and then launched into research. Also started the Homeopathy Research Institute, and now I'm opening my lab in Germany.
Very good. So you are a true scientist in a real way that keeps asking the questions without prejudice.
Yeah, for me as a scientist, it's always been about looking at the evidence and saying, okay, look, there's something there that I don't understand. Really, in terms of the physics, we know, like I did my PhD on the physics of water, so I really know how impossible it sounds. But yet the evidence tells us that there is something there, that there's something that we don't understand. And also what I see is that actually the models we use in physics, the physics of water, our understanding of water is still not complete. The models we use are quite simple, because the complexity of water is one of the most complex elements we have. Despite its chemical simplicity, it's actually got very complex chemical physical properties, one of the most complex. So we don't, we know about them, but in terms of explaining everything, we still have relatively simplistic models, I would say, and I think there's a lot there that we can expand on, explore, And maybe homeopathy is just showing us something that we don't understand yet about the properties of water.
What is homeopathy showing you regarding the properties of water? What is your hunch?
Definitely there's something there that we've underestimated in terms of the complexity of water. For example, it looks more and more probable in terms of from experiments in homeopathy and conventional medicine that there are certain structures in water that are relatively stable, even stable to the point of being able to dehydrate the samples, and then these structures are still stable under dehydration condition. So the first step is that these structures exist, and the second exists that these structures have sufficient complexity to carry the type of information that we see in homeopathy. And there again we have certain indication that that might be the case. And of course then to be able to use it as a therapeutic tool in, in a medicine such as homeopathy, then we need to study how these structures, this information can then be used and interact with living systems. So these are kind of research questions we're exploring. And
you will be exploring in your new laboratories in Germany?
Yes, so we're just opening, just in the last few weeks, opening the lab in Germany, in Heidelberg, where we will be exploring this type of questions of water structures from the very first principles from physics, so near-infrared spectroscopy, nuclear magnetic resonance, conductivity measurements, dynamic light scattering. So physics really of water, looking at these properties from first principles. And first to look at the structure, and then looking more in terms of specificity, so that specificity does it tell, can we have a specific remedy, specific information? So these questions, yeah.
Very good. So you will be exploring homeopathy from the physics point
yes, very
of
much
view,
from the physics,
which is very, very tangible and mathematical.
Oh yes, no, we very want to go no placebo effect here.
Exactly, the argument doesn't enter.
No, no.
It's very,
it's really
cannot get more physical than physics.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and you'll be having a team of scientists in your
That's the idea. So we've got in principle our budget is secured, and well, our starting budget is secured, and we'll have a team so in the next few months to start the research.
That's wonderful news.
Thank you. Yeah, so Homeopathy Research Institute started as kind of an idea about 13 years ago. As I was finishing my PhD, I was like, well, we really need to be more serious about homeopathy research. So it needs some kind of institute, some kind of center. And when I was in London studying homeopathy at the weekends, and people were very curious about my path with physics, and so the idea really emerged to create the Homeopathy Research Institute. And then it's progressed, and I've gathered many people around me over the years. There's been, so now with Rachel Roberts, we're really going ahead. And today is the opening of our third Homeopathy Research Conference here in Malta. And so we're really glad to be here. And yeah, the aim of the Institute is really to promote high quality research and also to be objective about the research in homeopathy. There is not that much research in homeopathy. Some of it is not so good, some of it is okay. So we try and really inform the public about the research, what is valuable, what is not, what we need, what are the challenges. So this is the type of thing we do a lot. Yeah.
Would you find that a scientist needs courage to research homeopathy?
It's a very good question. Most people have the notion that science is pure, that you can just carry on doing research as long as you have a question. Homeopathy has gathered so much animosity because it's so controversial in terms of the idea that there would be a memory or something in water that would carry information. This idea has been so controversial that it's been quite hard to get funding for research. Many of the conventional sources of funding are really not interested in this type of research, which is quite controversial because homeopathy is used in Europe alone by 100 million people, and yet it's receiving a minute fraction of the funding that's spent on conventional research, medical research. So it's, you know, in a way, if so many people are using it, shouldn't we be more invested in research? If only, if we find the answers. If it's nothing there, then fair enough. But our indications so far, and the latest meta-analysis, for example, by Robert Matty of individualized homeopathy, which is like the homeopathy you would receive if you went to a normal homeopath, is positive. That is, the indication now that the research says in placebo-controlled trials, homeopathy is effective. And when you go to a serial homeopath, it works. If you take that seriously, then really we should be funding a lot more research. But the animosity has been such that it's actually been hindering the research, and there's been a lot of very kind of gut reaction to the idea of homeopathy, despite the fact that a lot of studies are actually quite positive. First, we're delighted to be in Malta, great island, we're loving it here. In terms of homeopathy, we hope that this will give you an opportunity to try it out, to hear about it. We are really here to explore homeopathy research, so we come from the very scientific ground, so we'll be presenting over the next few days many clinical trials and scientific studies from basic science as well. Really setting the scientific foundations of homeopathy. And as a patient, then you might be tempted to or interested in seeing what can homeopathy do for you. The homeopathy can treat many conditions, and also our message is very much as an integrative medicine. It is as a help when conventional medicine doesn't have the solutions. Homeopathy has certain very interesting solutions that help many people. So maybe that's something you would like to try.
Welcome, Dr. Peter Fischer. Welcome to Malta.
Thank you.
Welcome to the third Homeopathic Research Institute conference. And welcome to the program IN-NISA.
Thank you very much.
We'll be meeting, the Maltese public will be meeting you today.
Okay.
And to introduce you, Dr. Peter Fischer is a clinical research director of the Royal London Hospital for Integrated Medicine, which was formerly known as the Royal
London Homeopathic Hospital, yes, until 2012.
And he also happens to be the physician to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. So, Dr. Fischer, how did you first become interested in homeopathy? You had already qualified as a medical doctor.
Well, actually, no. No, I became interested in complementary medicine, indeed in homeopathy, when I was still a medical student, before I qualified. So a very long time ago, in the early 1970s, I went to China just after the visit of Nixon. China had been closed to the world for 10 years, just 2 or 3 months after Nixon visited. So this was just when China was opening up, still the Cultural Revolution in China, and they were practicing a lot of traditional Chinese medicine. And I remember being in the operating theatre of a small provincial Chinese town, and there was a woman lying on the operating theatre with her abdomen open, having a part of her stomach removed, conscious, talking to the anaesthetist with 3 needles in her left ear. And I thought, that doesn't happen. They didn't tell us about that in Cambridge, but clearly it was happening. So that was the thing that interested me, first of all, in complementary medicine, as it was then called alternative medicine. So then I realized there was more in medicine than we were taught in medical school. And then a couple of years later, I was still a medical student. I was ill myself. I went to see a very distinguished professor at my medical school who did a lot of big tests and made a precise diagnosis and said, tough, nothing can be done. So I tried, on a friend suggested I try homeopathy. I did. The first thing is I had a flare-up, I had an aggravation, and then it got much better. So I became interested at that point.
And your problem didn't recur?
No, never did.
Very
no.
good. Very good. And how did you get involved in rheumatology? Because you are consultant professor of rheumatology.
Yes. Well, you have to choose a speciality. Rheumatology is very prevalent, and homeopathy is useful for it. There's a lot of rheumatological conditions around. Many of them are neglected. Osteoarthritis, one of the most prevalent conditions of all, is generally very badly treated, and you just take painkillers and have joint replacements. That's not much else can be done with conventional medicine, and some of the treatments are quite dangerous and cause side effects.
Yes, and what convinces you as a doctor, as a medical doctor, and as a homeopath, that the effects that you see in your patients is not due to placebo?
Well, first of all, it doesn't matter. What is important in clinical practice is the patients feel better, and we shouldn't talk about, you need to be careful when you talk about placebo, because one should talk about non-specific effects. So non-specific effects include good advice on lifestyle or diet and encouragement. So those things are part of the art of good medicine. But on top of that, clearly homeopathy does have effects that are not psychological. And it is the clinical research that proves that. It's promising. There's a lot of criticism of homeopathy, but if you look at the results of the research, it is positive. It is clearly positive net. Overall, it is positive. One of the problems is there is difficult to find money to do research. Research is very expensive. One problem, of course, is there isn't commercial money. There isn't big commercial money because generally homeopathic medicines, you can't patent them. So if the industry doesn't see a reason to invest large amounts of money because if they show that a medicine works, then they can't protect that investment. So that is one problem. But also homeopathy is faced by scientific skepticism because people believe that it can't possibly work because of the very high dilutions used.
So people do not believe it works because of the high dilutions, not because of the effects, the positive effects that are witnessed.
Yes, that's true. Yes, people said, well, it must be placebo, it can't work, even though actually the weight of the evidence, I won't say the evidence is 100% positive, but it is mostly positive. So people simply disbelieve that evidence. It must be wrong, it must be fraudulent, it must be something, because we know it can't work.
How substantial is the cohort study regarding the usefulness of homeopathy in treating flu pandemics and other epidemics?
There is, well, epidemics, there is not homeopathy, there is positive evidence for homeopathy in upper respiratory tract infections and in flu. But for flu pandemics, there isn't enough evidence. In all areas of homeopathy, there needs to be more scientific research. Well, in homeopathy we say we don't treat diseases, we treat people. So it's this whole person approach that, they come with a rheumatic complaint or with asthma or whatever. You're not treating a case of arthritis, you're treating a person who happens to have arthritis but may have other things. And now with an aging population we see this more and more. Multimorbidity, in other words, older people commonly have 2, 3, 4 diseases. We know in the UK that on average after the age of 65 people have at least 2 chronic diseases. So you're not just saying, okay, this is a pain, we treat it with a painkiller. We say, look, this is a whole person with a particular complex of problems, and maybe we can help several of their problems at the same time.
There is a whole, or has been a whole controversy in the UK regarding homeopathy in the NHS. But hearing you speak, wouldn't homeopathy actually be more economic for the sustainability?
Yes.
The use of homeopathy makes it more economically viable in the sustainability of the NHS.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Why would this be
that's
so?
True, but they don't see it that way.
But why is it true?
Why
is it? Well, is it true?
Well, homeopathy, for one thing, there's a big study done in France which shows that homeopathic consultations may be a little more expensive, but overall net homeopathy saves money because the drugs are much cheaper, and in the long term people use fewer drugs. So it definitely is cost effective. Why the NHS can't get its head around that, I'm not sure.
We have all read that the royal family has traditionally been using homeopathy for a very long time. What is the history of that, and how far back does that go?
Yes, the history, as you say, for a very long time, since the 1840s. Queen Victoria in the 1840s was the first to use homeopathy, and she was introduced to it by her husband, Prince Albert, and his father, Prince Leopold of the Belgians, had been treated homeopathically, in fact by the founder of our hospital, a man called Dr. Quinn. So yes, we have records going, we know from the 1840s the British royal family has used homeopathy.
And it must have been successful, otherwise it wouldn't have continued down the line.
Yes, 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 right down, and Prince Charles himself now has spoken in favour of using homeopathy, and he uses it to treat his animals, to reduce the use of antibiotics in his dairy cows, for instance.
What is the position of the World Health Organization regarding homeopathy? I understand you are in a committee.
Yes, I'm part of the expert committee of the World Health Organization on traditional and complementary medicine. They don't have a specific position on homeopathy, but they have a strongly favourable position towards what they call traditional and complementary medicine, which includes homeopathy along with acupuncture and herbal medicine. But they have a strategy now in place from 2014 to 2023 to encourage the development and the incorporation of what they call traditional and complementary medicine in health services. So they don't have a specific position on homeopathy or indeed any other kind of traditional medicine, but they have a policy for traditional medicine that is very favourable. Homeopathy, I think, has a role to play in many of the big challenges. So it's mental health, but also antimicrobial resistance is another huge, even bigger challenge. But yes, homeopathy is effective in anxiety and depression, and is very safe and generally very popular with patients. You know, the problem so often with conventional drugs is they may be effective, but they have severe side effects and they're expensive and induce dependency in the long term. So homeopathy is free of all those problems. It does not cause dependency and has no serious side effects.
How do you feel about being responsible for the health of Her Majesty the Queen by using homeopathy?
Well, of course, I'm part of a team where she has a whole medical household, so she has doctors for different areas. So we don't use exclusively homeopathy, but, you know, it is good medicine.
What do you see as the role and direction homeopathy needs to take to meet the health challenges of today and also to dispel the prejudice and the myths that hang around it?
Well, I think research is the answer. It has to have research focused on the big problems, including antimicrobial resistance. There's quite a lot of research on homeopathy in infectious diseases, so that's one area. There is not so much in mental health, and there should be more. And the prejudice, I think, has to be basic research. It has to show that these very high dilutions may seem strange, but they do really work.
What is your message to the Maltese public regarding homeopathy?
Homeopathy is a valuable form of treatment. It is very widely used and it is effective for many conditions and very safe.
I am Italian and I coming from Tuscany. But my work started in 1978 in Milano, and I discovered homeopathy because I had a friend of mine, a relative that was a homeopathic doctor, and we started that time many years ago to make a group of study and working. And to insert ourselves in an organization, the name is Homeopathy Europea, led by the Dr. Imbrecht from Belgium. And then, since then, we work on clinical level, and then I moved from Milano to Tuscany 20 years ago, and in Tuscany we started to work in the healthcare, public healthcare system, trying to insert complementary medicine and homeopathy included in the healthcare system. So I am working since about 20 years, 19 years in the hospital of Lucca, where there is an homeopathic clinic, public homeopathic clinic, and we work on many kind of disease and pathology, and with a good result. And the Tuscany region has tried to build up a system of including complementary medicine in the offer that the region can propose to the citizen of Tuscany citizen.
Very good. So can you tell us, so in Tuscany, in Lucca precisely,
Yes,
there is a government homeopathic clinic
Yes.
that offers homeopathy to its patients together with other
Yes.
non-traditional medicine.
Yes.
What kind of people come to you? What are you
Yeah,
treating there?
People is coming from all over the province of Lucca, but not only. They can have a free access to the clinic. They have to pay only a small ticket as in every kind of specialities. And they have the visit. They cannot have the drugs, the
Yes.
homeopathic drugs, but they have to pay for them. But the visit is considered free for the people who have low income. The principle was to give the opportunity to the person that want to use complementary medicine. That is about 20% of the population use it, and mostly homeopathy. The possibility to have an access in a public system, and to be within the public system, to collaborate, to cooperate with conventional medicine and conventional doctor. People coming from not high intellectual and high income people, just people, I mean, and citizen, and they feel with more safeness to be there, and to have qualified doctors to attend them. And at the end, we have seen till now consecutively about 5,000, 6,000 of people in these years.
So the people are satisfied with homeopathic medicine? Do
Yes.
they find it good?
Yes, satisfied the people and also the institution, because we have to present every year the result of our work, and we had about 70% of people with a good result of our work. And they have also, we are working especially in some items which are allergy with children, recurrent infection of high respiratory system. And now recently we work with the cancer department to give and help to the patient under chemotherapy, hormonal therapy, radiotherapy, and to give sweet medicine for them.
Perhaps people do not know that homeopathic remedies are small sugar globules.
Yes.
And that's why you call them sweet.
Yes, they don't have very much, not very important side effects, and so they don't they are not toxic for the liver. So it's important for a cancer patient to have this kind of.
So in Lucca and in Italy, homeopathy is integrated in the multidisciplinary
in Tuscany is
approach to
integrated.
cancer.
In Italy, it depends of the region, because we have a federalistic healthcare system, so it depends of the region, and we have many experience of integration in public health system. Yes.
And what area of study will you presenting to us this morning at the Homeopathic Research
Exactly
Office?
the result of the work we have done in the last 3 years with breast cancer patient, women with breast cancer, and what we have done to relieve the side effects of chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and hormonal effects, especially this problem which is depends of iatrogenic menopause. People, women are under the anti-hormonal treatment. They go in very early in menopause, artificial menopause, so they have flashes of heat and other not severe but very noisy and not good situation. So we can help with homeopathy, but not only with acupuncture, and also with other kind of herbal therapy.
That's very good. And do you discover in your experience that homeopathy is gaining more and more standing and credibility within the skeptical scientific community because of such work?
Yes, there is of course a strong opposition also in Italy, but we think that with more research, more clinical result, we are able to overcome these problems. Yes. My message is very short. I mean that if we speak about the possibility of talking with the conventional medicine to make projects, to collaborate, my message is yes, we can. Our experience demonstrates that we can.
Our organization started in 1994.
咁一路咧就直至到去到2000年初啦，咁我哋就同呢個Homeopathy UK 就達成一個合作。
And then in 2008, we start to cooperate with the School of Homeopathy UK.
咁到今時今日咧，我諗喺根據我哋自己嘅內部嘅資料啦，咁基本嚟講咧喺香港咧就有成20萬人次咧就已經係接觸過我哋嘅順勢療法㗎啦。
According to the data from our clinic, there are actually 20,000 of patients has visited our center at least once in this few years.
咁如果以香港人口嚟計算嘅話咧，即係每40個人咧有1個人係嚟過我哋嘅 clinic。
So if you calculate according to the population in Hong Kong, 1 in every 40 Hong Kong citizens has come to our clinic at least once.
咁而家咧喺我哋個學生人數裏邊咧，都接近係1000人咧，已經係一路係咁學習緊順勢療法。
There are about 1,000 of students in Hong Kong. They are studying homeopathy at different levels.
Very good. And as I was speaking to you earlier, you said you started it from the practice, from the experience, and then built up.
From the very beginning, we started our practice, and patients and many patients feel that they got really great improvement after the homeopathy treatment, and so that they are more and more interested into the study of homeopathy, and that is why we gather a group of people, and then they're interested not only in using homeopathy but to study homeopathy, and that is why we later on set up all this proper education of homeopathy so that we can treat more patients.
You must have had a great success. Homeopathy must have had a great success to attract so many patients and so many students.
都算係成功嘅。
It's quite successful.
Very good. And I understand you will be presenting a paper in this conference on homeopathy and diabetes. Can you tell us, speak to the Maltese people who have a high incidence of diabetes and water, how homeopathy can help with diet and...
OK 嗱，我哋呢個糖尿病嘅研究咧係一個回顧性嘅研究啦。咁基本嚟講咧係第一個咧係由喺中國人地方做嘅糖尿病嘅研究。
Actually, this is the first paper that is about homeopathy that is published from our region, the China region, and it is about diabetes control with the addition of homeopathy to the conventional treatment.
咁亦都係咧，我哋喺個研究入邊發現咧，只要你係用咗12個月度啦，咁已經係有一個好明顯嘅改善嘅，即係比淨係用西醫。
In the retrospective study, it is found that after 12 months of homeopathic treatment, there are significant improvement on the diabetes control compared to those who just use the conventional medicine. So the addition of homeopathic treatment after 12 months, there is a significant difference between those who just use the conventional insulin or oral anti-diabetic drugs.
咁尤其是咧，我哋發現咧，如果你喺糖尿病嘅初期，尤其是即係用西藥控制得唔好嘅話咧，咁其實咧你反而用順勢療法咧個效果係好好嘅。咁所以如果一般人如果你即係喺患有糖尿病而發覺用西藥效果唔好嘅話咧，順勢療法我相信係一個非常之好嘅選擇。
There is an interesting association that if you got really poor glycemic control at baseline, actually you are the you will benefit most from the homeopathy. So it is we think it is quite important that many of our diabetic patients actually they're refractory to the conventional medicine. Even if on multiple regimen on insulin, the diabetes control is still poor. For this group of people, actually homeopathy may be a good choice.
And there is scientific evidence that clearly demonstrates
所以係
this.
有一個科學嘅證據證明咗呢樣嘢，雖然係回顧啦。
當然一定係啦，呢個一定係。
So this is the first. We will think it is kind of a preliminary kind of data, scientific data, to provide evidence for further investigations. Yes, and we hope that more researchers can investigate in this area, because it is a retrospective study. Although it is not a very large study, but it is a beginning, and we hope that other researchers can just join in and to study more about what kind of homeopathy treatment would be beneficial to our patients, and what kind of patient would be the most vulnerable. I mean, the group of people who would be best on homeopathy.
And do you use homeopathy also to treat diabetic complications and circulations and
都會用
ulcers,
順勢療法嚟到去處理糖尿病嘅一啲併發症啊嗰啲咁樣啊嘛，
vascular disease?
例如係心臟病啊或者血管嘅嗰啲嘢嘛。
我哋會用，一定會用，係效果好好添。
Yes, and actually, many of the patients didn't really come to us for their diabetes alone. They come to us because they got heart disease, maybe already got a multiple operation on the heart already, but still they need further operation. Then they start to seek for alternative treatment, and that is why from the baseline we know that there are actually significant proportion of patients who has more heart events compared to the conventional group of patients.
Do you have hope for homeopathy, that it will proliferate, that in Europe it will continue to be as successful as it is in Asia and Hong Kong?
喺香港應該會點樣成功嘅發展？
我覺得咧喺嚟緊嘅日子咧，順勢療法咧將會係越嚟越多人接受，亦都有越嚟越多嘅人咧喜歡讀順勢療法，亦都會越嚟越多順勢療法醫生咧係慢慢咁樣係成長。咁我相信將來咧即係會越嚟越好嘅。OK， 因為我哋都會經常咧同政府有呢個接觸，希望能夠即係將順勢療法咧係納入一個正規嘅醫療入邊，即係註冊咗佢。
And we know that the trend is like more and more patients, they like to use homeopathy, and more students, they want to learn more about homeopathy. So we believe that as time goes by, the experience of the homeopaths in our region would become better and better, so that their treatment effect would be even more significant than what we had now. And but in our region, I think the most important thing is the regulation. There is still no regulation about homeopathy in our region, and that is why we constantly encourage our government to really set up a proper regulatory system, so that the practice and the practitioners and also the patients can be protected.
That's very good. And in your students, you train people in homeopathy only. They do not train in medicine and homeopathy. They are trained as
佢哋
homeopaths.
一直讀就已經係讀順勢療法，定還是係有啲係西醫背景，然之後再讀咧，還是係其他咧？
我哋絕大部分嘅學生咧都係就讀順勢療法㗎啦。咁當然亦都有啲西醫嘅背景嘅人會去讀順勢療法啦，亦都有係中醫。咁甚至有啲係心理治療師，咁亦都有護士咁跟住去讀順勢療法。咁所以我哋都係基本嚟講係任何人只要對順勢療法有真摯嘅興趣，我哋都會喜歡教育佢哋嘅。
We didn't set kind of like inclusion criteria, but majority of them they start learning homeopathy with homeopathy, but there are proportions that there are medical doctors and then they study homeopathy, and there are portions that there are traditional Chinese practitioners and then they are interested in homeopathy and further they study in homeopathy. We also got others like acupuncturists, psychotherapists, and all kind of different healthcare practitioners. So once if they are interested, they can join in a group and to just make the whole group stronger.
What convinced you? What convinces you that homeopathy works and it is not just a placebo effect? What convinces you?
係啲乜嘢真係説服到你？
我自己用過順勢療法，最初，我覺得即係喺我自己個人嘅感受，我覺得佢絕對唔會係安慰劑。
First, from the personal experience, he started become a patient before all these things. So, from a patient's point of view, because the effect is too significant to be a placebo, so first is the personal experience. 呢個係首先嘅重要。
而且我再將我哋好多嘅順勢療法嘅處方用喺好多病人身上邊。咁其實好多病人佢俾翻我哋嘅翻嚟嘅效果係好真實嘅，而且再加上呢個糖尿病嘅研究，我哋都一個比對，咁好明顯順勢療法絕對唔會係一個安慰劑。
And then when we see more and more patients, when they get significant improvement, actually before they seek help from homeopathy, they are already being treated by multimodalities. So basically, if it is placebo effect, it's simply not possible to appear on this kind of patients. And also after our diabetes research, in the diabetic research, the outcome measure is objective. It's not kind of subjective kind of measurement. So it is not really that prone to a placebo effect for that kind of significance. Yeah.
Okay. What is your message to the Maltese public regarding homeopathy?
我希望咧喺 Malta 呢個地方能夠即係順勢療法有更加多嘅發展。如果可以嘅話咧，我哋應該係喺每一個地方、每一個國家都應該有自己嘅即係建立一個順勢療法嘅學院，去喺當地訓練多啲順勢療法嘅專才同埋順勢療法嘅醫生，咁順勢療法先能夠越嚟越普及。
He hoped that the development of homeopathy in Malta can become better and better on the coming years, and he hoped that actually even not only for Malta but every country they should have their local kind of training in homeopathy, because homeopathy is about culture, it's about local people. So if we get some local training for homeopathy in each country, it would really help the development of homeopathy globally.